Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Bright Ideas Business Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Trent Deersmith, and I'm here to share the stories of today's most successful entrepreneurs, and more importantly, to extract all the best golden nuggets from their brains for you to implement in your company starting today. On the show with me today, we have Cody Barbo and Katie Fellenz, who we'll get to in just a minute. But first, we have to pay the bills with a quick message from our sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by Cloudways. Is your website slow? Has your online business outgrown your current hosting provider? If you have answered yes to either of these questions, it's time to move over to Cloudways, a managed cloud hosting provider that is built for online businesses. From a hassle-free launch to a smooth server operations, Cloudways is your partner in scaling your e-commerce business for greater success. All you need to do is go to cloudways.com and use the promo code BRIGHTIdeas, and that's all one word, and you should probably put it in all caps. And when you sign up for a new Cloudways account, you will get a $25 free hosting credit. Okay, so Cody and Katie, welcome to the show. Cody, I'll very quickly introduce you because I have your bio, and then I'm going to let Katie do herself. Cody Barbo is an entrepreneur and two-time founder from San Diego, California. He currently serves as founder and CEO of Trust and Will, a modern estate planning software startup. Cody also serves on the San Diego State University Alumni Board of Advisors as the VP of Partnerships. At his last startup, Cody served as the founder and CEO of Industry, a LinkedIn for the services and hospitality industry. So, Cody, welcome. Katie, who are you and what do you do?
Thanks, Trent. I'm Katie Fellenz. I am the head of marketing here at Trust and Will. My background, I've been in marketing for about 12 years, primarily on the agency side, and then prior to that on the brand side as well. So my role at Trust and Will is to make sure everybody knows about Trust and Will and to grow our membership.
And that's a very important role indeed. All right, guys. Well, let's dive into it. Your company name kind of gives it away what you sell, but just so there's no confusion, what do you sell?
Yeah, trustandwill.com. So happy that was an available domain. Trent, thanks for having us on today. We are building, in its simplest form, the TurboTax for estate planning. So as you get married, you have kids, you buy a home, it's times in your lives like this, you start to think about life insurance and your joint finances with your spouse. These conversations are not the most fun, but they are important conversations to have nonetheless. And when you think about kids, being able to appoint guardians or protect your assets with the value that a will or a trust can provide, we can get into what those things are. Really, it's to bring a mass market consumer offering to half the population that doesn't have these documents easily and affordably.
All right. And to be clear, everybody in my entrepreneur audience, we are not going to be talking about trusts or wills in this episode. What we are going to be talking about, as I do with many, many entrepreneurs, is the journey of how they're making this company successful, because the principles obviously are going to be widely applicable to anyone else who is looking to do something similar, though not necessarily in the area of trusts and wills. So the company was launched when?
In October of 2017 is when we incorporated, and we launched our first product a few months after that in April of 18.
Okay. And how many customers have you signed up so far?
We've had over 65,000 members sign up for one of our 3 products since then.
Okay. So pretty decent amount of traction. It's a bit of an odd niche. It's maybe to someone like me who doesn't think about trusts and wills, maybe not the most exciting niche in the world. So it wouldn't have occurred to me to go into that niche, but I'm guessing there's something that happened for you, Cody, that made you think, hey, I should start a company in this space. What was that?
I got married. I was like, hey, if we're getting married, one of those like adulting tasks that I really wanted to check off the box. And the fact that being fairly tech forward and have a fintech app for everything in my life, I can get my life insurance online relatively easily and affordably. TurboTax exists. The fact that the only 2 options that came to mind was go to an attorney and spend thousands of dollars on something that's seemingly far too complex for my wife and I. And then door number 2, go to a LegalZoom. It's very off the shelf, built for small business owners. I was like, where's the TurboTax for estate planning? So, my co-founders and I I call us the elder millennials. We're in our 30s, we're married with kids on the way. It's a very real time in our lives to be thinking about this. The fact that the market didn't have like a streamlined, intuitive product at an affordable price point, but one that can grow with us over time, really inspired us to start this business. And knowing both the pros of having an estate plan, but also the cons of if you die without one, it can really create a mess for your family.
Okay, so, and either of you can answer the questions that I'm going to ask. So let's talk about early on. Obviously, you had to develop a product, and this isn't really a software development show, so we're not going to go into the nitty-gritty of how exactly you did that, other than to say, I'm guessing you probably raised some friends and family money, cobbled together a prototype of some kind, got some customers, and then did some more money raising. Is that more or less what happened?
Yeah, exactly that. We, out of the gates from incorporation, went straight angel investing routes. So we had about $500,000 come in, both combination of individual angel investors as well as Techstars, which
with
is
no prototype?
No, team experience. My co-founders come from a custom software development background. So they'd built applications for Fortune 100 companies down to funded startups. This is my third startup, second venture backed. So there was a level of credibility that came with that I think helped.
Although, one of the best stories is that you guys technically pitched the product and there was no product.
This is true.
Ended up placing, right?
Yeah. The very, very first announcement of Trust and Well was at a pitch competition at Qualcomm's headquarters in front of 600 people in the community. We had made our way to the top 10 on stage and pitched an idea. We literally had to get a splash page up like the week of, put a pitch deck together. We were not incorporated. So yeah, Katie is correct. We had literally nothing, which led to the first investor interest and Techstars interest in encouraging us to apply. So good catch.
Okay. So you had a pitch deck, you raised $500,000 off a pitch deck and some exposure at Qualcomm. Then you got invited into Techstars. Was that before you raised any of this $500,000 or was
during the process? Yeah, I think collected first check end of November of 17, and we had kind of a rolling close as we went through Techstars through March of 2018.
So naturally, you paid yourself $250,000 a year in your salary, right?
Yeah, my Tesla's parked out. No, we barely paid ourselves anything. I was like, Daniel and Brian at least were leaving two very well-paying jobs. Being an entrepreneur who hasn't had an exit yet, although I've had some success, it's not a glamorous salary. Sorry to your listeners. You know, you really don't get that payday until you're very mature as a company or until someone buys you or you go public. So my Honda CRV has treated me well for many years.
All right. So now let's accelerate through all that stuff. You guys are ready to start acquiring customers. How'd you get your first 1,000 customers?
Yeah, this is such a great question. So kind of playing into the elder millennial card a little bit, most of our friends now, and when I say older millennials, like 30 to 40 is an older millennial now. People forget this. And majority of us and our network of friends are married, having kids, or they have their pets as their kid, like Jack Bauer, Katie's dog. And we had this kind of like revelation, and how do you have conversations with your friends about stuff that's actually important versus what bar you went to. And what surprised us the most before we had even incorporated, which was what led to that pitch competition, we went and pitched like 200 friends. We're like, hey, like you're married, you have kids. Have you ever thought about it?
You pitched 200 friends?
Yeah, it wasn't the best like LinkedIn or Facebook message or text message to receive. Like, hey, do you have a will? So we prefaced it with like, hey, so-and-so, great. I have a really random question. We're looking at pursuing a new startup and wanted to ask you a couple questions because you're a parent, married with a house, something like that. So we basically like surveyed our network, and for very few of them had these documents already. Very, very, very few. And the few that did, it was like my grandparents technically like forced us to set this up. But for most of them, it was this: I have life insurance. I don't have a will, but I know I need to do it. And the biggest fear for the parents that we had talked to was every time they get on an airplane without their kids, like it's a work trip or just a quick vacation getaway, they have this fear that builds up in the back of their heads that if something happens in the safest mode of transportation, but it's always a plane, if something happens, what happens to my kids? And these documents can help decide who you want in your life to look after them versus the courts deciding that for you. And we matched that like early friends at network in the earliest of days before we had even incorporated it. By the time that we launched, our one ask was, hey, when we launch our first product, will you be the first to test it out? It'll be entirely free, but we want feedback. Did this answer all the questions? Did we communicate appropriately during the product and our chat support? to give you the confidence to have a complete set of documents. And that was from 200 to the first couple thousand. Is just continuing to tap into our network and doing very small scale tests on social and Google.
Okay. So those weren't they were users, but not necessarily customers because they didn't give you any money, right?
Some of them were paid. Yeah. So we launched our first paid product outside of the beta was in April of 2018. That's right when we finished Techstars. So I still have a photo that I walk the team through in the onboarding deck, but we have our first customer document that was paid for in April. So it's a blend of fully paid, a lot of discounts to forgive our bugs, and then some were free through our friends network.
Katie, when did you join the team?
I actually joined in December of last year, 2019, so relatively new, and hit the ground running from a marketing perspective. A lot of channels to touch.
Was the homepage on the site the same when you joined as it is now?
It was. We've made a couple small tweaks just based on some user data that we've compiled.
Okay. So I'm noticing, because I'm really big into making sure companies are on point with their positioning. And I'm looking at the words in the picture. So I've got estate planning made easy. And then I've got this couple, but there's no kid. So a couple questions come to mind. Why wouldn't you put a baby in the picture, number one? Because there's a subconscious thing that happens there. And then Cody, because I'm guessing you maybe were the one that came up with the words. Why did you choose estate planning made easy? Are those the exact words that you're targeting? Like if you had asked them about estate planning, did they say, I want estate planning made easy? Why did you choose those words?
Yeah. So, Katie, I was going to say one fun part.
I can take a little bit. Yeah.
My fun response is, early stage startups, we don't always have the biggest budgets, even if we raise some angel money. So that's actually my co-founder Daniel's sister and brother-in-law, who not only have a kid who's now 2, she was pregnant at the time of that photo. They have a growing family. So I think we just need to update the photo with the baby, and we're in business there. The Guardian product has a baby on it though.
Yeah. The other thing that's kind of interesting, and I'm glad you brought that up, Trent, is that there's a couple things. One, the guardianship, while from an ads perspective, imagery with babies definitely are the hook. We actually see the majority of our conversions come through for a will or a trust versus a guardianship. And not everybody, you'd be surprised how many people do not have children, but are still putting down and creating a will and a trust. The estate planning verbiage is definitely something that will likely be changing from an SEO and organic perspective. So the product really falls under that estate planning is the category, and then we have the individual products. We've found that there's still a lot of education that needs to be done about what is an estate plan. So we're doing some user testing, and then obviously from an SEO perspective, we'll want to look to see what's actually what most people are searching versus estate planning made easy.
Okay. And walk me through the process of, because I have a very specific process that I've been taught to follow to generate the exact words for your positioning. And I think it's quite clever. I'm interested in to better understand, as hopefully the audience is as well. When you're doing this research, how do you translate the data that you're collecting into a meaningful output that you can actually use with a high sense of certainty to know that you've positioned your company exactly correctly from a messaging perspective for the target audience that you're going after?
I think a big part of it is going to come down to, at least for us, individual customization of the experience. We have a very broad audience. Everybody needs an estate plan, but what's going to actually hook those users is a little bit different. As Cody alluded to, we have the guardianship, which is very much the family-friendly, family-oriented, protect your children, that kind of mentality. Then we have more of the, I would say the male demographic tends to respond better to more of our verbiage around leave your legacy and protecting your assets. And then we also have the older demographic who is concerned about maybe their older children and how they're going to be taken care of later on in life. So we have very different, distinct audiences, and they each need to be treated differently. Obviously, we want brand consistency throughout, but it's really about customizing that experience so that they know that the product that they're using is the appropriate one for them.
Okay. So here's a pro tip for the audience. Guys, if you're wanting to do positioning, a great way to do it is when you get all your survey data. And for what I do is I ask open-ended questions in my surveys, and then I take all of that body of copy and I put it into something called wordcounter.com, and it'll show me which single words are used the most, and then which 2-word combinations are used the most, which obviously is extremely helpful for figuring out exactly the words that I need to have on whatever landing page I'm sending traffic to. All right, so let's talk about lead generation for you guys. You've got to get inflow. You've got to get people coming to the site. I'm guessing if you have multiple markets, you probably have multiple landing pages. Yes, you're not just sending everyone to the home page.
Correct. And I think that in our industry in particular, there's 2 separate ideas to think about. There's demand capture and demand creation. So demand capture are the people who already know what estate planning is. They already know they need a trust. They already know they need a will. That's where Google Ads comes in, and more of your direct response. People who are looking for a trust, a will, online will, free will, whatever the case may be. And that's the demand capture. And then we have the demand creation, which we have individuals who are, still very high level research. They know what a will is, but they may be asking questions that aren't directly related to a product. And that's where we can kind of go into the Facebook world and the display world, the very high level top of the funnel, to create more of that demand and let people know that we exist and that our products are something that they really need.
Okay. So with respect to Google, and this is originally how when Cody and I were in the pre-interview, how he decided to include you in the interview. Can you go into a little bit more detail on what specifically you're doing on Google, and maybe include also in your answer, Katie, some things that you tried that didn't work? Because I always like to have my audience try and learn on somebody else's dime if possible.
So nice of you. One of the things that I'll start with what didn't work. So one of the things that we've been testing is our bid strategy. So estate planning in general has a really long purchase funnel in some cases. Some people come to the site, they convert immediately. That's the demand capture. We know that, they know what they're looking for. But in some cases, our funnel can be, 4, 6, 12 weeks or longer. And by testing our bidding strategy, we were utilizing a target CPA. So focusing on our cost per acquisition, so an actual purchase on the site versus micro conversions along the path. And we found that actually is not the best way when you have a really long funnel, because your cookie window may be 30, 60, 90 days, depending on how you have it set up. And if we're not driving conversions for 12 weeks or longer, Google isn't learning at the same speed that we would need. So we've identified these micro conversions along the way that if we track those and set up our campaigns to utilize those micro conversions, we're getting a lot more efficient CPA.
What are you using for your database and your email marketing? Something like ActiveCampaign or a different?
So we're actually in the process of switching. Right now, prior to myself joining the team, we were using SendGrid for transactional emails, and the engineers just built it out to be a funnel. But from a marketing perspective, you need something that's a little bit more flexible. So I've used pretty much every marketing automation software you can think of. We're reviewing a few right now, and we'll be making the transition over to a new platform that allows for more flexibility. Again, back to that customization that I was talking about. We want a custom experience based on the audience, whether that's the landing page, the verbiage they see on the page, triggers within our email marketing campaigns, depending on the actions that they're taking with our copy and our emails. Email's the cheapest channel you can run, so it's really important for us to make sure that that's dialed.
Which apps are on your short list for email?
Good question. There's a few. One that's relatively new that is exciting to me, it's called Klaviyo. They're based out of Boston. Iterable is another one that's kind of more of the Klaviyo competition. And then you have your traditional Marketo's, Pardot, that kind of level. Marketo's on there. Pardot, I would recommend if you're utilizing Salesforce and you have a more robust, you need more lead scoring. Pardot's on that list as well.
Okay. So when you talked about micro conversions, I'm assuming you're probably then you tag in your app when a micro conversion happens, and that tag can then trigger either adding them to a Facebook audience or to a new sequence within the email autoresponder. Is that more or less what you're doing?
Exactly. Our engineers are awesome. So while we're using a platform that isn't the most flexible, they're able to basically accomplish anything that we need currently.
Yeah.
So you're exactly right. Within the actual app or product part, we can see any abandonment. We can see how far people are going. We can then identify everybody who's dropped off at a certain point, for example, look back at our member data that we've already collected and identify any consistencies between that audience and know, okay, people who typically, in general, people who hit these 4 items are more likely to drop off at this part in the stage. How can we tailor that experience for that specific type of audience?
Okay. So in Google, in the actual ads and the campaigns that you're running, are you finding that video is converting better than still image for one market or the other? Like what are the things that are actually working the best for you?
In ads, I would say it's more so our targeting. So a couple things. One, geo is really important for us, surprisingly, especially with our targeting and ads. We're not running a lot of video or imagery within Google ads. On Facebook, it's typically video. It's converting at a higher rate, at least for lead generation. So we have leads, which are registrations, and then we also have purchases. And then to your point earlier, imagery with babies. People love imagery with babies. They get the most engagement.
Absolutely, because babies are cute and cuddly.
You know what's funny is we actually have one ad creative in particular that has a baby in a really cute cloth diaper. And that ad has gotten so much engagement by the mom community, just saying like, oh, I use those diapers and that's such a cute pattern. And the engagement is blowing up just strictly because of the diaper that's on the baby.
And that's a Facebook ad.
That is.
And I'm guessing that's driving your CPL way down because of all those comments.
Yeah, exactly. But what's actually interesting with that is I've been in talks with the diaper company to see if there's any potential partnership there, because they obviously have a very engaged and very excited community.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Wheels and diapers, right? Who would have thought?
Yeah.
That's not something you probably would have connected while you're sitting in the boardroom on the whiteboard brainstorm.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. And now on Google, are you getting more traction with search or display? And are you also doing retargeting on something like Perfect Audience or AdRoll?
Yeah, we are doing a little bit of retargeting. It's primarily text ads at this point that's driving the majority of the actual conversions. We did a small test on YouTube. I want to expand that and try again and do a little bit more pre-roll and build out the video channels. But primarily it's text ads currently. And retargeting, like you said, AdRoll a little bit, but not a ton at this point. The majority of our success for retargeting is coming from Facebook.
Okay. And your retargeting costs, I'm guessing, are dirt cheap.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, why not? It's interesting with AdRoll, because with AdRoll, you can follow people around for about 95% of the internet. And Facebook, obviously, you're only retargeting them when they're in the app. Is there a reason why you haven't? Is it just been a lack of time and resources that you haven't put more effort into AdRoll? Because obviously there's a lot to do, and you probably have a team that's fairly small still.
Yeah, exactly. We do work with an agency for our Google ads currently, but it has just been what levers are currently working and how can we expand on those, and trying to test new things at the same time. Okay.
Now, Cody, is your do you have a hand in marketing at all?
More on like the PR front. I'm very strategic in how I think about tactically how to announce certain things, whether it's new team members, product, partnerships, investment. So my mind goes much more qualitative than quantitative, which is why we're so happy to have Katie on the team. But that's my answer to your question.
Okay, so I noticed PR. Good thing that you brought that up. I noticed you've got your TechCrunch, Inc., Forbes, New York Times, Entrepreneur, NBC, TechStars. Did all of those press mentions happen largely as a result of your being in the TechStars program? And I'm sure they have like a whole incubation system for getting you your social proof. Or was there a different strategy at play there?
Yeah, kind of a couple parts. I mean, anything Techstars related, they love highlighting their portfolio companies. And because they have a global footprint, they have an internal network like a LinkedIn for Techstars founders and mentors. There's obviously a boost that you can get from being a part of that experience. But you got to think, I mean, we have some incredible investors on our cap table. I mean, we just raised our Series A with Link Ventures, which is a new venture fund, $100 million fund out of Boston area. But we also have Revolution, which is Steve Case's venture fund, specifically Rise of the Rest seed fund. And Steve's network is expansive all over the world. So what's lovely about having these global presence venture capital firms, even though they majority invest domestically, is that they have full-time PR and marketing teams in-house that also like to elevate the portfolio companies, not just around a fundraising transaction, which has been helpful. But I think what's been a lot of fun for us is that because we're so unique in the business that we're in, there's only so few startups that are doing this online. There's only 3 of us right now, that it gives us the ability to really perceive what should this industry look like? How do we want people to even think about estate planning, let alone what our company looks like? And I love that we can control that narrative. And there's, as Katie kind of pointed out, there's so many overlapped hooks into financial services, parenting and diapers, travel, home ownership, taxes, going in for death or surgery. So we can kind of filter in both products, partnerships, as well as just general content around these different angles to take. And that's where a lot of the PR is kind of surfaced.
Okay.
We have a PR partnership that we recently have engaged in as well, and targeting more so on the local news front. And we've seen a lot of success with that so far. I mean, we just started this program, but kind of tapping into those top 25 DMAs and seeing lift in specific areas that we can measure.
Nothing like pulling the wrong lever on your chair.
I have a very big dog at home, and I had a roller chair in the office one day, and I take him to the office, and I was on a video call like this, and he ran off, taken after whatever puppies do, and I legit like flew off the screen in an important call, and they're like, where'd you go, man? I came rolling back in.
Yeah, yesterday. So I actually have an office that I no longer go to because I couldn't stand wasting the 17 minutes there and the 17 minutes back. So I literally work from home now. And yesterday the dog was at home. I'd forgotten because normally he goes to the office with my wife, and so I can record in peace. And sure enough, a courier, comes to the door, knock, 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 and my dog goes berserk. And people knocked on the door, so that resulted in some editing after the fact. What a pain!
Yeah, it's fun. It's real. Yeah.
All right, let's finish up with, we talked a little bit about Facebook, but it's such a big platform. What trends, Katie, are you seeing on Facebook in the last while? Like, are CPCs and CPMs still skyrocketing, or are they, in your niche, are they relatively level? First part of my question. And second part of my question, just if you can give us an overview of the type of campaign that you're seeing the most success with.
Yeah. So things are starting to level out a little bit for us, which is awesome. And luckily, one of the things I think that a lot of people forget is just ad fatigue. We need to constantly be changing out our creative. I think anytime the way we have our campaign set up is we have our learning campaigns, and then we have the trusted campaigns that we know are already performing. So we're constantly adding new creative to learning campaigns so that we can quickly identify what's going to work and what's not going to work. And as soon as we have any significant data.
Let me interrupt you. When you say learning campaign, I want to make sure the audience understands what that is. I see that as you're just buying data so that you can make wise decisions about what's going to go into your ongoing campaigns. It's just testing, basically, right?
Exactly. You're exactly correct. So we're doing that on a consistent basis anytime we have new creative, and putting several creative at a time so we can as quickly as possible, identify what is going to resonate with our audience, and then port that over into a campaign where we actually put budget behind it. That's kind of the strategy that we're using, because we were noticing that creatives were just getting stale and we wanted to constantly be feeding that and giving new visuals. Luckily, we have, on that point, one tidbit that is kind of a tip for the audience. We do some heavy influencer marketing through a couple different platforms. And one of the things that we always do is require that we get ownership of the creative. So if, so-and-so blogger is posting an awesome picture of them with their family and a trust and well product, we technically own the rights to use that imagery. So we have a plethora of ad creative that we can pull from and test at any given time. Your second point, what's working best, it's really retargeting. We've done some tests with the in-lead forms, didn't see a lot of success, or at least the quality wasn't there. We saw high volume, but the quality wasn't what we were expecting. Carousel ads, we typically see perform a little bit higher because for us, we can tell a story with each creative. And then from a creative perspective, some of our best performing, we did a commercial around the end of last year. And we broke that into individual snippets that are kind of funny. We like to talk about the brand. We don't focus on any of the morbid side of things, but keep it really light, keep it really fun. And so those ad creatives of this little girl, of what would happen to her if her mom and dad don't have a will, who's going to take care of her. And, there's the crazy uncle with a million cats, and there's the aunt with a motorcycle, and there's like mom's best friend who's having her like swipe right on Tinder. Those help tell a story, but keep it lighthearted. And those definitely are performing well also.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to wrap it up there. As I know, I have at least a few people in my audience who might also be in your target audience. Do you have a special offer that you can extend?
Yeah. So I think Bright Ideas is an appropriate code to enter at checkout, and we'll offer 10% off our products. So if you go ahead and add that in at the checkout screen, it's all the way at the end. You can go through the whole product experience for free, but to get the final documents, enter that code at checkout and we'll take care of you. And let us know that you heard on the show too in our chat. We'd love to hear from you. And it's a fun way to engage with your audience in our own ecosystem.
Absolutely. Well, Katie and Cody, thank you very much for making some time to come and be on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Trent.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Trent.